Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and welcome to episode 272, where we're going to talk about some ideas and things that you can try to see if a new business idea that you have could be viable. And I think this is on a lot of people's minds right now as we think about life after tech. Oh gosh, I just happen to have a book about this. And as we think about what might be next, whether we're staying in tech or leaving tech, a lot of us are looking at branching out and planting some seeds. So today is going to be a triple adventure. I have prepared some slides. I also have an article we're going to go through, and then I've got more slides. So we are going to talk about some different ways to think about business viability. And I welcome your questions. So if you are watching live, get those questions into the chat. They'll come up on the screen and I will answer them when I'm not looking at my slides. And hey, make sure you are joining our community. Our community is totally free. There is no membership price. There is no annual fee. There's no upsell. Just join us. dcx.to/Discord. We are a Discord community. We have almost 600 people and we rebooted all of our channels today. So we have a nice, friendly, and active universe. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and let's get some slides up there and hopefully this will work. All right, hopefully everybody can still hear me. And if you're watching live out there, let me know where you are and what you're drinking and any thoughts or questions that you have. Meanwhile, let me jump into my slides and let's start talking about business ideas. Okay, so I've named my little slide deck a few methods to determine business idea viability. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Debbie from Delta CX. Delta CX is a full-service consulting firm offering a lot of problem finding and problem solving, whether that's for very big companies or startups or new businesses or really companies of all sizes. Research, design, and innovation, coaching and training. But what I want you to know today is that before I got into all of that, the focus of my business was something else, and I have a little slide on it that might surprise you. But again, join the community, be part of what we're doing. And if there's something you think I can help you with or you want to hire me for, head on over to dcx.to and learn more about our universe. And let's see if I can advance my slides. Hey, so guess what? I have spent over 30 years helping small businesses. Yep, that was me in 1999, almost 30 years ago, with my then dog, Rita the Jack Russell Terrier. And I had a business, and it was not called Delta CX. It was called As Was, after the punchline of an electric company cartoon. And my slogan was Start, Market, and Improve Your Business. And I worked with a lot of different types of companies, usually entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and small businesses, and I helped them plan and strategize and grow their businesses. So today we're getting back to some of my roots, and we're going to talk about planning and strategizing a small business. Hello, Sifu Peter in San Pablo with coffee. Good, enjoy. So what do I do when I have a new business idea, which for me feels like 10 times a year? The first thing I do is I jump into a spreadsheet because I'm trying to figure out if I can make this thing financially viable. So for example, this is a real spreadsheet that I'm working on for an idea that my husband and I had to open up a campground, or what some people would call an RV park. So I've got things here that are one-time startup expenses. Some of these are the real numbers because I looked them up. Some of them are high estimates because I wasn't sure. And then I've got ongoing expenses, things that are monthly or annual, whether that's maintenance or insurance or even the money I lose to processing people's credit cards if they were to pay to come to my campground with a credit card. What about a cleaning crew or a security system? What about a system to book the spaces at our campground? And the campground doesn't exist right now. This is just an idea. What if we offered people internet? What does that cost? So I've got on different parts of this spreadsheet this information. And because I do this in Excel, or you can do it in Google Sheets. I think this one's in Google Sheets. You can start doing the math. All of my spreadsheets are heavily mathed out, where I'm adding stuff up, I'm multiplying stuff out, I'm running all kinds of numbers. And so some other things that you'll see on the sheet is, for example, how many different size pitches, which is the little spots you get at a campground or an RV park. What different size pitches can we make, and how many of them would we have if we used a piece of land we had in mind? Well, that's important to figure out because that's going to affect our revenue. If people are paying for this stuff, how are we going to calculate how much money we might make? So there you see that I've got some different plans of small, medium, large, and TH was tiny house pitches, which I eventually went with 0 tiny houses, but different numbers of pitches, and that's the capacity of what I can do. So for example, if you're opening a physical space, it has a capacity. If you have a cafe, it has a certain number of seats, or an amount of takeout orders you can get through in a certain amount of time. If you have services, you have a capacity. There's only so much work you can do in an hour, and there's so many hours in a day or week that you're going to work. So you want to think about that capacity. Then I've got stuff up in the top left where I'm doing the math on what could I charge people if they stayed at our campground. And you can't tell from this particular sheet because I didn't label everything because it was in my head, but some of these calculations are the money people would pay us, and some of these are my estimates in how much water people will use and how much electricity they'll use. Why? Because then that's going to affect my water bill and it's going to affect my electricity bill. And I want to make sure that I'm not undercharging people where I don't even have my utilities taken care of. So even though you might not understand everything that's on my sheet, the main message I want to give you is that when I start playing with an idea, I go pretty deep. I look at one-time expenses, recurring expenses. I look at all of these different parameters that are going to make me money or cost me money. I looked at what water costs. I looked at what electricity is paid for around here and tried to put this all together. I tried to think of extras we could offer people that might bring in more money. Like, what if we had a grocery delivery service to the campground? You know, what do we think we could make on a little delivery fee? And then I do all the math to say, how does this look? But let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about this because I got plenty of slides. So again, create that interactive spreadsheet. Let Excel or Google Sheets do the math for you. Look at those startup and one-time expenses. Look at recurring monthly and annual expenses. Look at any costs of utilities. Even if you're a service, even if I'm sitting in my house right now, there are utilities I'm paying for that help me do my work. I bought that light. I have a computer. I have to pay for internet. You might also need electricity, internet, garbage, sewer, etc. What about cost of services? Many of us do need to hire professionals along the way to get our small business up and running or continuing to be compliant and legal. Lawyers, accountants come to mind. Maybe you need artists, web designers, other stuff. Up to you. What about costs of supplies? Do you need paper? Do you need food? Are you making food? Are you selling food? Is it someone else's food? You know, you usually have suppliers in all different types of business. Where are you going to get this stuff? What does it cost to get this stuff? And then, of course, will you have workers? Maybe you're the only worker, and that's okay. I'm for that. But what if you do have workers? What do you have to pay them? Do you have to offer them benefits? How are you going to do this? What does it cost you? And then you want to take a look at possible income with different pricing or units of pricing. Are you charging by a session, an hour, a day, a cup of coffee, a hotel room? Up to you. And then can you brainstorm other income sources that make sense for this business? And then I go back and forth in that spreadsheet and make different adjustments like, okay, maybe I don't need to start my business with offering people this. Maybe that comes in a version 2. I can lower my startup costs. Or maybe I don't offer them internet right away. I lower some of those costs. But are you lowering it so much that you've removed the value and now you can't charge so much? So you really have to play around with a lot of these things and be more familiar with your domain. I adjust it until it seems to financially work, or I go, this doesn't work. I give up. It's an interesting idea, but it doesn't financially work. For example, if you take a look at this spreadsheet, I'm imagining, what if I had 5 customers per night in the high and mid seasons at this pseudo campground that doesn't exist yet? And what if I only had 1 customer a night in the low season? Well, according to this spreadsheet, I lose 725 euros a year. So guess what? That doesn't work. I don't want to run a campground set up to lose money if I end up with a small amount of business. And I think that's an important version of your spreadsheet to have. I think a mistake a lot of people make is they go, oh, wow, imagine if my cafe is full every day. Or imagine if I go to that art show and I sell everything. Okay, imagine if you pay to go to that art show and you sell nothing. So unfortunately, we do want to take a look at what would it look like if we started out, obviously not with 0 customers, because then we don't have a viable business. But what if we started out, or for a while, had very few customers? So here I'm imagining, what if I had room for 40 customers, but I only had 5? I might even ask myself, what if I had room for 40 customers and I only had 2? And so I want to try to see if I can create a financial balance where even if I don't have a lot of customers yet, or in general, this still is a winner of some sort. And right now my spreadsheet shows not a winner. What are other things that I might need to do? Hard to know. Lowering prices won't help. Raising prices might not work if I price myself out of the market. So it really takes a lot of thinking and playing with the spreadsheet to try to figure out if you're going to have that financial viability. Much easier with some service businesses where, what does it cost you to be an artist? You're already an artist. What does it cost you to be a handy person or an electrician? Well, now you need tools, you need equipment. So this spreadsheet is going to be totally different based on whatever you're doing in your unique personal way. And as I go, let me know if you have questions. Another thing that I also do is a competitive or market analysis. I don't do it the way that my MBA taught me to do it. I go out there and I just start doing some searches. Who's out there? Who's out there in general that I might compete with? Or if this is a local business of some sort, who's out there nearby who I compete with? Are there any new startups or scale-ups that I need to look out for because maybe they have funding, they have a big influx of money and they might really blow past me, or maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe I've got a good chance too. What are they offering and at what prices? Who is their target audience? Maybe we've got a different target audience. Maybe they're going to target millennials and I'm going to target older families. Maybe there's room for all of us, but I want to be aware of what that competition is, who they're targeting. What's the barrier to entry? This is something we sometimes hear about in business school, and it basically means, how easy would it be for someone else to start this business and start competing against you? I'll give you an example. One of my friends told me that he's vibe coding a phone app where people will be able to record not necessarily mantras, but inspiring things to say to themselves, and then the app would play them back, I guess, when you want or need to hear them. That is a very low barrier to entry, because if he can do it with vibe coding, you could do it with vibe coding, and he could very quickly have competitors because the barrier to entry is low. A barrier to entry is higher for something like a campground because you need land and you need all this infrastructure. A barrier to entry for certain types of services could be higher because sometimes those services require expertise and experience, and not everybody's going to be able to jump in and offer what you can offer. So think about those barriers to entry and try to see if you are entering into something that is too easy for people to compete against you. Can you compete against them? Remember that competing might not be about lowering your price. Sometimes it's about offering a better total package or better service, more service, higher quality. You're not necessarily always competing about price, so don't make it a race to the bottom. Research your target audience early. Now, for those of you who are researchers, you know how to do this. If you're not researchers, no offense, you might not be good at this. And even if you watch my episode 264 on good and bad questions, you still might not be good at this. And that's unfortunately common, but at least the good and bad questions video over on our YouTube channel, Delta CX Hive, you can just go to YouTube and search for Delta CX 264. It should come right up. That should give you some ideas, but we're going to talk a little bit later about falsely validating bad ideas. Again, if you're watching live and you have questions or comments, let us know. Get them up there on the screen. I hope I'm not missing any. I'll jump into LinkedIn quickly and see if I'm missing any comments today. Hopefully my system isn't blocking them. Nope, no comments from LinkedIn yet. Let's see if anybody's watching, and then we'll get back to the slides. Hello, LinkedIn. Okay, looks like some people watching, so let me know if you have questions, and hopefully people watching on YouTube as well. So, research your target audience early. Make sure you understand people before you try to solve their problems. It's way too common in business and startups for someone to say, you know what? I have an idea of something cool, and I bet there's people out there who need this too, so I'm just going to make it. But this is why we have over 90% startup failure, because we haven't taken the time to understand people, contexts, systems, how they do this now, what's working for them and what's not, and we show up with our solution and then people go, that's not what I needed, or that's not how I needed it. And so best to de-risk our stuff by slowing down and doing a lot more research and learning earlier, not just about our competitors, but also about our target audiences, because they might not need this. Once upon a time, I offered to help a friend with a new startup. I offered to call people from the top of her waiting list. She had a waiting list. She said what she was working on was so amazing and exciting. She had people waiting for it, and I offered to help, and she said, sure, call customer number one, Leslie. Leslie is my biggest fan. Leslie is going to be customer number one. I said, no problem. I put together a little research plan. I happen to know Leslie. I called Leslie. We did an interview, and I asked her some of the typical questions we talk about in CX and UX research, and like, hey, how do you do this now? And what about that process is working for you? Where could that process be improved? To try to dig up some of what's working and some of the pain points or opportunities. And when I got to how could this be improved, she said, I don't think it can be improved. And I'm thinking, if it can't be improved, I'm not sure she needs our friend's system. I said, well, maybe there's some way that this could be better, faster, easier, more efficient, cheaper. She said, no. She said, I've been refining this approach and my process for 20 years. My process is now really good. I don't think that I don't think there's any way to make it better. Well, I tried asking it again, and she was again like, nope, no way to make this better. And I said, so you won't be customer number one. Now, I normally wouldn't say that to a research participant, but since I knew her personally and we were both friends with the startup founder, I felt like I could say something, and she goes, no, I guess I won't be customer number one. I was like, yeah, no offense, but it sounds like you don't need this. And she goes, I'm not sure I need this. She's like, but I really want to support her? And I said, I do too. I went back to my friend and I said, bad news. Customer number one is not going to be customer number one. I think we have to shift our research to really learn what people need in this space. And my friend said, no, I don't want you to talk to anybody else. And I was like, okay. Well, you can imagine where this story goes. She spent a year of time and money building this thing and then found nobody wanted it. So it's so important to do that research early, to ask the tough questions, to really listen to what people are saying, and to not be afraid of invalidating some or all of your idea. It's going to save you time and money to learn early nobody wants this or needs this, or that nobody wants or needs it this way. So do that research. Also think about your assumptions, things you might be guessing at. What is the one core thing that you assume about your audience or your market where, if you're wrong, your whole idea falls apart? There's always something at that base where if you are wrong, the whole idea crumbles. For example, in 2011, I had a startup that was a personal safety system. You might think that the core assumption is people will pay to be safer, or people need a personal safety system. That's not the correct core assumption. We need to peel away some layers there and go a little bit deeper. The core assumption actually was people understand how unsafe they are all the time or from time to time, and that being aware that they are unsafe would make them interested in something that would help them be safer. So my core assumption is people know that they are unsafe. And guess what? Once I spoke to a bunch of people representing one of my target audiences, I learned they think they're just fine. They think they're safe. These were real estate agents who are going to houses they've never been to, in neighborhoods they don't know, to show homes to customers they know nothing about. And unfortunately, from time to time in the news, these people are attacked or killed, and it may or may not be preventable, but when I spoke to these people, they said, well, I'm safe. And I said, well, how do you know? And they said, well, I carry a gun. This is America, of course. Or I carry pepper spray. Okay, but what if an attacker gets to their gun first? And they were like, but I've got a gun. Oh, okay, well, what if it's a group of armed people who are there waiting to surprise you at this house? But I have a gun. They could not imagine a situation in which they are surprised or outgunned. And that means they don't want a safety system. They think they're just fine. I might think they need it. I might think they can benefit from it. And I might build an amazing personal safety system, which I did. But unfortunately, at least this particular group didn't want it. So I also asked Claude, because I think right now in the AI LLM universe, we're very used to bouncing ideas off ChatGPT and other things. So I asked Claude, would real estate agents benefit from a personal safety system? Claude had many reasons why that is a yes. It even said, ooh, what about these features and these ideas? Pretty cool. And then I asked if real estate agents would actually use something that fits the product description that Claude gave me. Claude's a good thinking partner, at least the way I use it. And it said, maybe, and it depends. And it gave me some reasons why real estate agents might not use my personal safety system, even if it were awesome. And it even listed as one of the potential reasons a false sense of existing safety, that people might think, I'm safe. I don't need a personal safety system. So if you had stopped with AI or an LLM or some other AI tool that claims to tell you what people want, if you had stopped with, does this audience need a solution? You might think, hey, there is a target audience and they need what I create. Because that's the first thing Claude told me. Yes, real estate agents would benefit from a personal safety system. But when I dug a little deeper, it had a lot of reasons why they might never use it. They might not adopt it. And that's an important set of things to think out on your own, with friends, with a business partner, with AI if you want. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to tell you to do it. So go beyond AI, especially if you're trying to do something that is fresh or innovative, because AI in July 2025, when I'm talking to you, still remixes what it already knows from training or searching the web. It's unlikely to have a fresh solution nobody thought of. It might tell you you can be the Uber for this or the whatever for this, and maybe that's disruptive, but it's not innovative because we already have Uber. For example, I asked Claude some months ago, can you create a plot of a novel that doesn't exist already? And I had it try multiple times, and every time it came up with something, it said, oh no, that's like this book plus this movie plus this other book. It could not come up with a plot that had never been done. So we must remember that AI is still remixing its training and currently not necessarily the best at coming up with something that is truly innovative. Also remember, for those of you being seduced by AI tools, AI users are not users. AI interviewers aren't researchers. These sing the siren song that you will be able to quickly know what to make for people or interview people, but these are still quite flawed. It's hard to replace humans with AI. I mean, if you believe in this, then just have an AI interviewer talk to an AI user and the whole thing can just be a robot. And also, we can't complain about how awful it is to be interviewed by AI for our potential jobs, and then ask AI to interview people for a potential startup. We can't complain about AI's hallucinations, faults, or evil, and then ask AI to pretend to be our target users. So AI can help us brainstorm and it can help us plan, but I wouldn't assume that any of its ideas are necessarily viable, innovative, or not patented by somebody else. Also, in your process, make sure you are taking these ideas to rounds and rounds of concepts and evaluative testing. You researched your target audiences, you found unmet needs, pain points, room for improvement in their workflows, and tasks that could be optimized. You created possible solutions or concepts. Now you need to get those in front of real target audiences, not AI, to determine if your solution has potential or if you need to pivot, give up, or something else. Task analysis, which we've taught in many videos, go to YouTube and look for dcx task analysis. That can help you know if your concept is likely to fit unmet needs, whether it's going to match how people think and do their tasks, and be something people might be likely to adopt. And don't forget to read Disruptive Research by Larry Marine. Ana Lucia says, I was just writing a LinkedIn post talking about Larry and task analysis. Thank you. Tag him. Another thing that I do when I have a new business idea is I will stop and peek a little bit into IP, intellectual property. I like to come up early with a name for my product or service or company. I like the project to have a name, and I like to start to have a psychological or emotional attachment to the project. Rather than saying my project or my new idea, it's got a name. I will also search the American Trademark Database. You could search that, or if you're in a different country, search the trademark database for where you live or where you're mostly going to do business, and see if that name is already being used by someone else, and if your use of it would be a conflict where people might get confused because you're offering similar products or services. You can always hire a lawyer for this, but a little bit of this you can certainly do yourself. Just be careful. Search domain names to see what's taken and what's still available. If the .com is taken, what are they doing? Is this a conflict? Would it be confusing if people went to their site instead of yours? Would you lose business to them, or would it be obvious that you're doing different things? So check websites of businesses that have similar or identical domain names and make sure you're not calling your stuff something that would end up with a letter from a lawyer about how you're using a name that's too close and could confuse people. And also Google or DuckDuckGo or research any terms or names you're thinking of using to make sure it doesn't mean something unfortunate in another language. This has already happened to me where twice now where I've dreamed up names of something, started to fall in love with that name, and then when I took a fresh look another day and did a little bit more Googling, it turned out those words had some bad meanings in other languages. So broaden your searches. And then, if everything's looking good, you're going to want to do some planning. What would you have to do in what order to start moving towards this business idea? Do you want to make a flow chart? Do you want to show what's dependent on what? Ooh, I can't do this until I do this other thing. Or I can't start this until I've gotten this partially done or wholly done. And how much of that plan do you need to do up front to start making money? And how much of that plan can you do for little or no money? Next, I'd like to talk about inexpensive experiments, which means we are going to flip over to, give me a second to flip over to my other screen. No, that is the wrong screen. This was working before. Someone help me. Help. Help, wrong screen. I am trying to go back to my screen with my article on it. Where did that go? If I cannot show the screen, I will still read the article to you, but just a note that I have an article on Medium, so you can Google for it, and it's called Exploring New Work Paths with Inexpensive Experiments. If I can't seem to get that on the screen, oh, here it comes. No, that's my Outlook email again. Let's try again. All right, here we go. Nope, it was hiding. Okay, so I'm going to read this article out loud, and again, I welcome questions and comments on it. If you're watching this later on YouTube, leave some comments under the video. I will answer them personally later. Exploring new work paths with inexpensive experiments. In my Life After Tech book, I recommend working immediately, don't delay, to plan your next career and work areas. With so many people predicting that tech jobs will be reduced or eliminated in the coming years, and with layoffs and being replaced by AI, the future is looking uncertain, if not dark. Therefore, we should be brainstorming, planning, and planting seeds for future work areas. Don't wait until you're desperate. Many of us want to try something entrepreneurial where we run our own business. Maybe we'll be a solopreneur where we're the only person in the business. Even if you don't create a business entity and you start under your personal name, you can still start planting seeds and try what I call inexpensive experiments. An inexpensive experiment involves spending little to no money to determine if a business idea you have has potential. For example, in November 2024, my husband and I decided that we would like to be karaoke DJs on the side. I already owned a lot of equipment and we had already done 2 unpaid shows. What would this cost us? Since I have web hosting that allows me to run multiple websites, setting up the free version of WordPress for another website costs me nothing. I bought 1 stock photo and we put up a website. My husband made the logo based on a panda mascot we use for various things we do together. We printed business cards that double as the cards you fill out when you want to sing a song. And we call it Pandemonio.party. This cost our time. Yes, I bought a hat. This cost our time, but very little in money. We could experiment with being karaoke DJs for very little money. But we did decide to spend about $500 on the equipment I was missing, which we'd been borrowing from family members. This was a convenience choice that we didn't have to make. We could have experimented for less money and continued borrowing that equipment. That way, if this idea fails, we will have spent very little money. And of course, I did buy a panda hat. We did have an outdoor show during winter. Now, here we are 6 months later, and we're trying some Google Ads. Our budget is under $2 per day, allowing us to control the budget and keep the experiment's cost low. So far, our ads have been delivered over 8,000 times and clicked on over 330 times. While none of those clicks have contacted us, it gives us some idea that maybe people might be looking for businesses like ours, and that if we continue to find ways to market it, we can hopefully end up with some steady work. What are some of my other inexpensive experiments? What does it cost me to say that I'm available to help you write and self-publish your book? I added a web page about it to my existing publishing website, and I started talking to people who I knew were working on books. Some weren't ready, and some didn't want to pay for help, but 2 people did. I quickly got some early clients. Hopefully they'll tell others. Plus, I'll have some real work to show on my website later in 2025 when I can be more public about these books. I look forward to getting more clients, but it was a nice start for minimal investment. What does it cost me to add conflict resolution services to my coaching? The time it took me to make a web page about it. Will anybody go for it? Who knows? But I believe that as life feels less affordable and people have disputes but don't want to use lawyers or courts or can't afford them, I might get some clients. It's a very inexpensive experiment. What does it cost to sell an ebook or information product? Mostly your time to write and create it. Then you can post it to your website, Gumroad, Amazon, whatever you want. However, the time to create these things, especially when AI is used minimally or not at all, can be significant. And your time has value. Perhaps you start with articles or something shorter to gauge interest in the topic. This isn't necessarily an MVP or minimum viable product. For the karaoke business, I did not choose the MVP. I decided that if we wanted to look really professional and compete against someone with a cheap mic, an iPhone, and a Bluetooth speaker, it was important for us to own all of our own equipment and better equipment than we could borrow from family. We bought speakers on stands, some lights, and a few other small pieces. I already had a set of Shure wireless microphones, an 8-channel mixing board, mic stands, and a lot more. Now we have a comprehensive and professional setup. Consider whether you can experiment with a minimum viable business or if you have a better chance of attracting customers and competing against other businesses by starting with more or better products or services. What's the least you can spend to get this idea off the ground and make sure others know that you offer these products or services? You might decide that the least you can spend is too little, such as my example with the karaoke DJ business. I didn't want to rely on family being able to lend us their equipment if the business picked up, and their equipment was okay, but really of lower quality. Or you might decide that the least you can spend is just fine. You can put up some web pages, you can update your LinkedIn, you can announce it in some communities you're in, share it with friends, and see how it goes. We have a channel for that on Discord, self-promotion. Come announce it on our Discord. Consider inexpensive experiments. They can be a nice baby step for someone considering a new business. You might get a few early customers who can then give you feedback, allowing you to iterate on your business idea. What could be improved? Does your pricing work? Should you charge less or can you charge more? Is there a product or service these people were also hoping to get from you that you aren't offering yet? Especially if you've gone through the 18 exercises in my Life After Tech book, you might have some very fresh ideas on something you want to do that might be very different from a traditional corporate job or a traditional tech job. Think about how you can create inexpensive experiments that will help you start getting this business idea out there and possibly attracting your first clients. So let's go back to my slides. Wrong window. PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. So I've got a few more slides that we're going to talk about today because I want to talk about, let me go to my slides, product market fit. Oops, wrong window. Here we go. First I want to give you some predictions for the near future. Then I'm going to talk about product market fit. So we already did a show, episode 270, on will AI create a resurgence, a renaissance in UX work and jobs or tech jobs in general? My answer is no. I don't think AI is going to create a resurgence for these jobs, and I worry that over time AI is going to reduce or eliminate these jobs. So then, what are we going to do? My prediction, and who knows if I'm right, is that there will be a resurgence of person-to-person small businesses, things that you need repaired, trades like electrician, plumbers, and handy persons. Expert coaches, whether that's a business coach or a life coach or other coaches. Haircuts, small business management, compliant and growth. As lots more people develop small businesses, some of them are going to need some services and help to start and grow. What about things related to food that might be person to person? And then what about people who might be teaching things that improve sustainability or lower bills? How to go solar, how to grow your own food, how to knit or make your own clothing, how to get set up in a tiny house or do van life or camper life. I think that we're going to see a resurgence in these more personal services. Some of these are products, many are services, and I think that's where we're going to see a resurgence as more people lose tech and other jobs. But that's just a prediction. You can start any business you like. Now let's talk about, this is a preview of the workshop I'm writing for a conference I'll be speaking at in September, and this is my super new, almost nobody has seen it, atomic product and service market fit model. But we're going to talk about it from the perspective also of accidentally validating bad ideas. So let's talk a little bit about what my model looks like. And I'm going to check my notes on this because I don't have this slide memorized. So when we think about product market fit, we say product market fit, but it's about a lot more than products. Our companies might offer digital and non-digital things. We might offer services or experiences. So when I say PMF or product market fit, I really mean every product, service, or experience that we offer. Now, product market fit is normally determined at a macro level because this is an atomic model. So we look at that 10,000 foot view and we say, hey, we achieved some metrics, we found a certain demand or customer retention, we think we have product market fit, there's a market, we can prove we solved their needs, and we hope that they're going to buy from us again. And at that point, many companies stop paying attention to product market fit. They act like we found it, we got there, we climbed the mountain. But I disagree. I think that once we find PMF, we're not done because we can lose it. Down the road, we might find things changed, or we're seeing unhappy customers, high churn, downgrades, cancellations, complaints, or we start seeing lower conversion rates. Product market fit is something we should never take our eyes off of. So using atoms as an analog here, PMF at the macro level is a compound. It's made up of molecules that are made up of atoms. Let's go down to that molecule level. A meso or mid-level would be feature market fit and service market fit. A growing and evolving company adds features and functions and service offerings. If each of these isn't great for your customers, you risk losing your PMF. Which of your features, services, or offerings doesn't need meso-level PMF? None! It's not optional. It's not a nice to have. But let's go further to that atomic level. Getting more granular, the micro level, that atomic level, reminds us that touch points are every interaction a potential or current customer experiences, the time they spend on your website trying to figure out what you offer, any conversations with salespeople or customer support. The fact that you have to talk to a salesperson or customer support is a touch point, especially if you thought you should be able to do things yourself. You can make a certain impression on people. Have you ever left a company or downgraded because you hated dealing with their customer support? I have multiple times. That's losing PMF at that micro level. Every interaction a potential or current experience ecosystem member has in your physical spaces or digital systems, these are touch points. So think about micro touch point market fit as being that atomic level. This is where you're going to need to focus for that longer term success. It's going to catch up with you when people expect more from a more mature company. Maybe your earliest adopters don't mind if you're flawed, missing key features, or getting things wrong. But as you attract potential customers with higher standards, you won't be able to ignore PMF at these more micro atom levels. So that is part of my model. And again, think about common failures at that micro or atom level. Every experience, interaction, and moment is a chance to make or break trust or make or break an experience. How about when we have experiences where we think, this is unusable. It seems broken. This new release is a downgrade. It's harder to use. I keep having to reach out to support for help. Trying to get things done is slow, difficult, hard to learn or remember. No, I don't want AI to do that for me, and stop hovering buttons pushing AI, or you're blocking what I need to do. This is buggy and unreliable. It's not accessible. I hate dealing with these salespeople. They just can't seem to keep up with their competitors. How many times can I complain about the same thing? Or thinking about something non-digital, the food is usually good here, but after today, I'm not coming back. Think about one or more moments, interactions, or experiences that broke your trust for a company, that made you fall out of love with a product or service. But Deb, I just want to validate my idea. Well, then you will. You'll absolutely validate your idea. We can always find people who love our idea and want to be customer number one and on the wait list. We can find people who have the problems we think they have and they love the description of our idea or the prototype. We can find the people who say, yeah, this is great, I'll pay for it. We tell ourselves and others and potential investors that we validated the idea. Bad ideas are validated many times a day, often by removing science or rigor from the validation process. We're biased, and we're hoping to hear validation, so we accidentally or on purpose design the survey, focus group, or research questions that tell us what we want to hear. Think about all the startups and companies who failed and pivoted. Think about what they offered. And imagine how you could absolutely validate that failed idea through a crappy survey, focus group, or interview. Take the hypothesis. I assume that surfers need a special app just to coordinate going surfing. Could you validate that? I bet you could. You could definitely plan, execute, and analyze research that proves this is true. Does that make it true? Good research? A good product idea? Should you build a business around an app that helps surfers coordinate going surfing? No, because people can coordinate an activity using any dozens of existing and free messaging systems. Mag says, yeah, usually validate my idea means prove I'm right. That's right, and we're going to get ourselves in trouble because vanity kills. Don't fall in love with your vanity metrics. A long waiting list or some early adopters are not sign of product market fit. Adoption, load these up, they're out of order. Sign-ups and a growing free trial or freemium user base, hey, that's a good sign. But you might not reach product market fit if they're not staying. Remember Clubhouse? They exploded, they had a big user base, and then people didn't come back. That's it. Product market fit goes beyond adoption. Oops, and it goes beyond conversion. We want users to become paying customers, and that could signal product market fit, but how long do they stay? Can you retain them? Or are they leaving or never buying from you again? Sure, we want people to be advocates and recommend and promote you without being paid, rewarded, or bullied about it. But that's not necessarily product market fit. You've recommended products or services to somebody, and then you drop that company, and then you recommend it against them. So advocacy is temporary, just like satisfaction can be if people aren't delivering quality to customers. Growth. Hey, paid users hit the North Star metric. That's good, but it may or may not signal true product market fit. The Sean Ellis test, or the 40% rule, doesn't mean you found product market fit. If 40% of the people you surveyed said they'd be very disappointed without your product, that feeds our egos. But guess what? Without our product, they'll use something else. Their hearts will go on. And if your Sean Ellis survey is only sent to people who've already shown loyalty and used the product for a while, that's biased. You're asking the people who stayed if they would be disappointed without your product. Fake doors, people can click on fake doors, but that's not necessarily a sign of product market fit. We don't know if when you eventually build the feature, if it will have true atomic PMF down to the macro level. Press coverage, social media activity, likes, shares, and buzz are not signs of PMF, but they do feed vanity. Finding some happy customers and cherry-picking positive testimonials doesn't mean you found PMF. Surveys or research that show people like it, still not PMF. I've read surveys about how a company ran a survey and realized they didn't have product market fit, so they changed who they sent the survey to. Suddenly they have product market fit. Surveys are generally the worst technique to use. Hey, I got an investor, I must have product market fit. No, I don't care if you won an award, still not. Hey, we're getting engagement. That can be interesting to measure. You're on your way to something, but it doesn't mean that you've retained those customers. And it doesn't mean that they're happy. So still more work to be done because adoption is just the first date. I remember a guy telling me, hey, I've got this dating app and I've had over 100,000 users in the last 5 years. I said, that's great. What's the problem? He said, nearly all of them cancel within 1 week. Does he have product market fit? No. Retention is the best metric. We want to make sure that we are keeping people. That's a great sign that we are offering something that they want, that they will use or pay for. We want to create ROI for our customers. They are judging the ROI of us, our products, our services, our app, our whatever. If we don't create ROI for them, they will probably find a reason to leave. So we want to measure retention. Course on product market fit is coming soon. You can get on the waiting list at cxcc.to/courses. And remember to please join our Discord community, which is free, at dcx.to/discord. Now, unfortunately, I have a work meeting in 5 minutes. So if you have questions, you might need to put those questions in the YouTube chat where this will be archived later. So if you want to watch this again, you'll find it at the Delta CX Hive, like Hive of Bees, YouTube channel where it'll be episode 272. New business viability, or send it to someone else. You must know someone else who's thinking about starting a business and they're looking for some inexpensive ways to think it through, how to create a spreadsheet to see if this is financially viable, and how to keep yourself from falsely validating or declaring product market fit. Thank you to Peter and Boo Kitty's mama, and of course to Mags and Ana Lucia and other people as well. So I am going to play our winding down music and start to play us out of here. Oh, I think the music is not playing. I forgot to press this button. Okay, music. And I'm going to have to run so that I can take my next call. But I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow for Ask Me Anything at our usual time of 7 p.m. Italy time. And get your questions in early if you want to be first. See you tomorrow, and join us next Tuesday as well. Check dcx.to/events to learn what else we're cooking up. Thanks. Bye.